Our next guest is part of a group that's been calling for a special representative. Stephen Brown is the Chief Executive Officer at the National Council of Canadian Muslims. He joins us from Montreal tonight. And Stephen, your group was one of the organizations calling on the government for this appointment. How significant is this?
Thank you so much for having me, Dwight. This is a truly historic moment for the Canadian Muslim community as well as Canada as a whole. For the first time, the fight against Islamophobia is really going to have an established home in the Canadian government. So we're quite excited to see this development.
What are you hoping will come out of this role then?
Well, the first thing is I think this position is really going to have the opportunity to advise on policies inside the Canadian government, but also we're really hoping for some tangible to be able to bring tangible solutions to some enduring problems. We know that in the past and currently as well, Canadian Muslims have been disproportionately targeted by security services. And so sort of rooting out the root causes of why that's the case and offering tangible solutions, but also looking at systemic issues with regards to policy or laws that either encourage or enable systemic discrimination against Muslims. Right now, we see that there's a real problem in the way that the notwithstanding clause is being used to curtail the freedoms of Muslim minorities in Quebec. And so looking at those policies and really bringing tangible solutions to the federal government, that's what we're looking for.
I heard, sorry to interrupt you, I heard a really disturbing stat today, and I couldn't believe that that was true for Canada. We're one of the worst among the G7 nations when it comes to this. So help us understand then, what is the current state of Islamophobia in Canada and how it's evolved or changed over time?
Well, that's an unfortunate reality that many people are not aware of. Canada currently is the G7 country where with the highest number of attacks that have resulted in the death of Muslim citizens. We also see we've also seen in recent times, we're one of the few G7 countries as well that is actually passing laws to actively restrict religious practice of religious minorities. And so it's gone from sort of discussion on one hand and discomfort in the public sphere, and we've really seen a huge spike in hate crimes in recent years, and now active legislation from multiple levels of government to take away Muslim people's rights. So it's a very serious problem, and in a country that is diverse like Canada and that prides itself on being a democracy where the rule of law exists equally for all citizens, it's something we desperately have to tackle.
Can you paint us a picture, like just as an everyday experience, Islamophobia in daily life?
Right. Well, it depends on who you are. For example, somebody like me whose name is Stephen and doesn't look like they're from the Middle East, I have a different experience than my wife, for example, who is from the Middle East and wears a hijab. At the National Council of Canadian Muslims, we have received a call every last single day from people that are being targeted by hate crimes.
Wow.
If you look, for example, and then there's systemic issues as well. For example, in my home province of Quebec, North Africans are one of the most educated groups in the province. They're also one of the most French-speaking groups. Despite that, the unemployment rate is twice that of the population. Muslims continue to face restrictions when it comes to finding decent housing. We're more economically depressed despite having higher rates of entrepreneurship and education. And so across the spectrum, Muslims really do face challenges. It's not just the insults that you get in the street or the things that you may see on TV. That's correct. Or the hateful comments online. It's pocketbook and safety issues, right?
What more then, Stephen, would you like to see from this government to address systemic Islamophobia, even with today being a good day with this announcement?
Number one, we really need to see review of policing policies. Number two, we really need to look at how our laws are structured, especially, I think the time is right for a real examination of the notwithstanding clause. I mean, with rising Islamophobia, the potential for its misuse to remove the freedoms of minorities is a real problem. We've already seen it in the second largest province in the country. And I think third of all, there really needs to be a change in tone and a real effort to educate people about who Muslims really are. Very often on TV and in the media and in various circles of society, we speak about Muslims. We don't speak to Muslims nearly enough. to realize that Muslim Canadians are just like every other Canadians. We participate in society. We love our country, and and I think that it's really important for the government to hone in on that and bring systemic solutions to systemic problems.
Stephen Brown is a Chief Executive Officer at the National Council of Canadian Muslims, and he joined us tonight from Montreal. Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much, Dwight, for having me.